Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Valle versus Lopez fight. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Valle is 31-3 with 10 KOs, and Lopez is 11-6-5 with 2 KOs. This fight is for the vacant WBC World Minimum Weight title. Valle's last fight was a win via TKO in round 2 versus Core, and Lopez's last fight was a win via TKO in round 4 versus Cruz, that being over a year ago. Lopez is 4'9" and Valle is 5'4". Valle's losses have come versus Estrada in 2024, Ruperich in 2018, and Fujioka in 2017. Lopez's losses have come versus Batiki in 2023, Borman in 2022, Valle in 2021, of course that being in their first fight, Enriquez in 2020, Saki in 2019, and Gomez in 2015. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously this fight was announced and was meant to be happening. It's in Liberia, and it was meant to be happening, of course, on the 1st of November, and it was announced to be happening, and it hasn't really been pushed. It's not a box rec or anything like that, so it was very hard to realistically find that the fight was actually happening unless you were following Valle on any social medias. But of course, like I say, it got announced that it was happening, but this was before Estrada announced. Before Estrada announced her retirement, and realistically, that's what's made this fight more interesting, and that's the reason why I'm here today to speak about it. Because, of course, this is now for that vacant WBC World Title, in which, like I say, Estrada vacated. It's interesting to see how quickly the WBC were eager to move along with the division and eager were to put this as the WBC, world title fight. You've never realistically seen the WBC be that quick, making a title fight from a fighter vacating the belt. But yeah, like I say, it's interesting to see, but perhaps it's because of it is because of Valle's name and the support she has, the following she has, the fact that she has been able to fight at a high level and have success at a high level and realistically be the second biggest name in the minimum weight division. And the fact that in general Estrada has retired, I think it's definitely going to affect the division. I think it probably is going to slow down the division with Valle and Estrada, and when you also think about Borman being in the minimum weight division, the division was entertaining. Estrada was continuously putting on big shows, big performances, was a big name for Top Rank, and was even headlining some of their events. And the fact that she's kind of retired out the blue with not realistically saying too much of a reason why. Of course, if you don't love the sport, then you shouldn't be sticking around in it. But it was coming as a bit of a surprise, and it did come as a bit of a surprise, and I'm sure it did for Valle as well, who probably was working her way back to a rematch versus Estrada and building herself back up and having fights like this to be able to get back to a position where she was able to have the rematch versus Estrada and wanted to keep active, wanted to keep busy. But now that's kind of gone, and perhaps it could even knock Valle's motivation. I don't necessarily know, because now the belt's all going to be vacant, and realistically, Valle could easily become an undisputed champion. Like I say, Borman is the only kind of other big name in the division, and I'm sure she's going to get a world title fight in one of the major sanctioning bodies soon. And so, yeah, like I say, it could be relatively easy, because other than that, there isn't really many names in this minimum weight division. So it could be quite simple for Valle to be able to go undisputed in the division now, where perhaps it's not really as big of an achievement anymore because of Estrada not realistically being able to create that toughness, create that difficult fights where it's a rivalry, where there's a lot on the line and it's entertaining and there's a build up to it. And I feel like every fighter type of kind of needs that in their career if they're going to become a world champion, and it seems like that's kind of gone for Valle now. And like I say, it's interesting to see. Golden Boy are still seemingly back in Valle, even though this is a very strange fight. And like I say, it's not really been talked about much. It's not been pushed anywhere. It's out in Liberia, which is, off the coast of Costa Rica, but still, it's not a big event, not a big stage. It could be the first boxing event in Liberia. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's just intriguing to see how it's happened and why this fight's happening, and in general, a rematch in which nobody realistically wants to see, and nonetheless, I suppose Lopez can bring a bit of an entertaining fight, and yeah, it's she fights all over. She's willing to fight anyone. She has definitely proven that she's willing to fight everybody. She has had certain successes in her career. I mean, I believe she got a draw versus Batiki in their first fight. Obviously she went to lose the second one. She got a good win versus Gallardo, who obviously has moved up in weights and went on to draw versus Taylor Robertson. So, that was a good win for her in her career. And there's been a couple of performances in which she was able to perform relatively well. But in general, a lot of the time in which she has fought against the top fighters, including that of Valle, where in that fight it was very comfortable for a lot of the time for Valle to be able to just kind of move around and be able to pick the shots and just kind of lead Lopez on to be able to be drawn into a fight, and was there to miss a lot and really was missing a lot and was able to win clearly via unanimous decision. She's there for a fight, but like I say, is this fight realistically needed? Too much is this deserving of a world title shot? I'm not too sure. But like I say, perhaps Valle might be coming into this overconfident, and that's where things could go wrong for her. And, of course, as well, Lopez having a year out is again another thing which isn't going to help her. Of course, she's now coming off a win, so it's nice to see her not coming off a loss, and she's coming off a stoppage win, which is again nice. Same as Valle, both not coming off of losses, which is nice. But like I say, before that, when you look at Lopez's record, it's not really the best of runs before that. But nonetheless, to speak about them both as fighters, Valle, she has a nice tight guard in which she is able to implement and come forwards with, and was able to do that nice versus Estrada. I haven't had an ability. I don't really think I can find the footage of her last fight versus Core Valle's, but of course, there is footage of a lot of her other fights, and I know about Yukasta Valle now. Of course, she's a name who's been around at a high level in this minimum weight division for a while, and of course, like I say, has been pushed by Golden Boy for a while, and she's got a high output. She's aggressive. She's typically a pressure fighter who can impose herself, but also can fight on the back foot as comfortably as well. And Lopez, who herself is a pressure fighter who tries to impose herself, Valle showed that in that fight she was able to fight on the back foot very comfortably, and obviously it was 3 years ago now, so it's a while ago now. But Valle showed a different type of performance in which she showed in other fights in which she's able to show versatility, which is nice to see. She can control the centre well. Valle, if she wants, she was able to do that well versus Estrada, but Estrada is perhaps a bit more of a back foot type fighter who was kind of inviting Valle forwards a lot of the fight. She punches all over you when she is getting in exchanges, and yeah, she has the fast hands, perhaps not as fast as Estrada's, and perhaps weren't as crisp of combinations as Estrada's, but she definitely has the faster hands than Lopez. She doesn't respect any of her opponents, and she was definitely, like I say, coming forward, bringing the fight. I think it was a very close fight versus Estrada. I think the result and the scorecards perhaps weren't really in her favour. The commentary definitely wasn't in her favour. A lot of people being very aggravated with Tim Bradley because of just how one-sided his commentary was. But yeah, in general, she doesn't respect, which is nice to see. She has a wide stance, and typically she is very balanced in her work. She finds range well. She has a very good work rate, and she is intense in her work. And negatives about her, I think she can be wild. I think she can be a wide puncher who definitely does smother in close. She definitely did that versus Estrada quite a bit, and did tie up and make it tougher at times, but was smothering a lot too much and wasn't as comfortable in close as that of Estrada. She can come in with her chin in the air. She walks forwards. She doesn't necessarily always follow up her shots that well in close. She can be drawn into a fight, lunges in, and doesn't really make adjustments or reset realistically that well. And perhaps that could favour into Lopez's favour. You know, if she is fighting like that versus Lopez, I don't think that will go her way. I think she definitely should fight the way in which she fought the first time versus Lopez, I believe, to have success. She can smother work, like I say, perhaps fighting emotionally. I think the occasion might have drawn her to fight a bit more emotionally versus Estrada. I don't think she cuts off the ring that well, and she can back up in straight lines. Obviously, like I say, she is the better back foot fighter than herself and Lopez, but she does, like I say, back up in straight lines. To speak about Lopez as a fighter, I think she, as a little bit of something in which I've seen, she swivels well off her body. She doesn't have good footwork. She doesn't really move that well, but she does kind of swivel well off her end around her body and use her whole body well to avoid punches, which is something I found as something quite interesting. She's aggressive and she will push you back. So, like I say, Valle is of course going to have to be aware of that. And of course, Lopez fighting for a world title is definitely going to be more than up for this fight and more than up for trying to stir things up, change things up, and we could perhaps possibly see an upset. It'd be a huge upset, but perhaps we could see it. She sets off a jab relatively well. Pretty much a lot of things are off a jab, and you know she has that big overhand, which she's of course not known for getting her stoppages. But if she does land a big overhand, it is a strong punch in which, like I say, she does set off the jab. She can deal with pressure, and of course is able to deal with that physicality as well. And she probably wants it to be more physical, and she does tie you up and make it tough for you in close. And with Valle smothering in close, she will tie you up. It'll make it even tougher for Valle to be able to get any work off in close. She has that continuous pressure. She gives her all. She pushes her shots through, and realistically, her movement's a lot like a bull. And you could definitely see that kind of matador and bull type effect in the first fight between the two of them, where Lopez's forwards was coming forwards with her head just going like this, and was kind of like jockeying forwards, and yeah, it was just an interesting movement to see. Negatives about her, I think she finds finding her range can be something very difficult. I think she can definitely rush in and swing wildly, and she's flat-footed in her work, and in general is very predictable. I think she definitely lows up on her shots a lot, and Valle was definitely making her look silly a lot in that first fight, and she's slower. She has her head on the line. She chases you in. She doesn't necessarily follow up on her shots that well. Like I say, she will push her shots through, but then they're not really being brought back, so she can definitely be caught with counters very easily. She overcommits. She fails at her own counters a lot and was continuously trying to counter Valle in that first fight, but was just not able to do so at all. She squares up. Her punch variation is relatively quite poor, and like I say, in general, she is predictable, and I think her accuracy a lot of the time is poor. And Valle is the favourite for this fight. I think that Valle will win via unanimous decision. I think Lopez is tough. She has been stopped 3 times in her career, but they were in the first 3 losses of her career, so she hasn't been stopped since 2020. And saying the level of opponents in which she has fought in that time, there's no, you know, that's quite a good feat, to be completely honest. And so I don't think Valle is going to be able to stop her. Like I say, I think Valle definitely has the recipe to be able to beat Lopez and beat her convincingly. I don't think she has improved since the original fight between the two of them, and I don't think there is really too much change. So yeah, I think Valle is going to be able to win comfortably via unanimous decision. Then who she could go on to fight next? Like I mentioned, the main name in this minimum weight division available to Valle, who would perhaps make sense as a good fight, would be Borman, of course, IBO champion, who isn't, a huge name. She lost to Neri Plata in the light flyweight division, then decided to move down, and then was able to pick up the IBO belt in her first fight. But nonetheless, like I say, she's probably the biggest name available, so perhaps we would see that come in if Valle, who seemingly wants to go for undisputed, that probably will end up happening. So it seems like she wants to stick around the minimum weight division, but if she wants the bigger fights, they're there in the light flyweight division. I think Neri Plata, Bermudez, Clavel, all fights there, which are bigger names in which are most of the ones in the minimum weight division. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like it if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.